On today's episode, I'm sharing some lessons learned about the power of listening. You're listening to the PHEC podcast, episode 367. The field of public health is so broad, overlapping multiple industries. With epidemiology at the core of public health, there are an unlimited number of ways to target specific populations, health conditions, environmental issues, and causes that matter most to you. My name is Dr. Huntley, and I'm the host here on the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast. I'm an epidemiologist, consultant, and entrepreneur with over 20 years of experience in healthcare and public health. On this podcast, my guests and I engage in conversations that demonstrate the importance of public health and epidemiology across a variety of industries, helping you think outside the box and inspire greater positive impact in communities around the world. Now, let's dive into the topic of this brand new episode. Greetings, everyone, and thank you for joining me on this episode. On today's episode, I'm sharing some lessons learned from working with one of our clients recently, and it's all about the power of listening. Now, I lead a public health and epidemiology consulting firm that supports large nonprofit organizations and government agencies that serve Black, Indigenous, and people of color, also known as BIPOC communities. We help our clients communicate their health data and information in plain language to the communities they serve. And how we support them looks a variety of different ways, just depending upon the needs of our client's organization. So if you or your organization serves BIPOC communities, then please reach out to us through our website at drchuntley.com. We'd be happy to meet with you and explore how we might be able to also support your organization. Links to our website will also be provided in the show notes for this episode. Now, I think everyone will be able to resonate with some part of what I'm about to share with you. I learned so much from working with our clients, and I think that as much as we as professionals in public health are looking to educate and to share information and to shed the light on situations and inform audiences and communities, we have so much to learn, equally as much to learn as a reciprocating factor. So I think that when we position ourselves in any project or any scenario ready to learn and listen as much as we teach or speak, then I think that's a win-win for everyone. So this lesson that I'm sharing with all of you on this episode is something that it wasn't like the aha moment. It hit me. It's the first time this has happened, but it was a reminder. Have this happen often, but it was such a clear reminder of the power of listening. I think that when we listen more than we speak, that's when the power of listening can really kick in. So for this particular client, the project was estimated to take it was between 4 to 6 weeks when we initially did our discovery call and they were describing what they needed. And I was estimating things. I said between 4 to 6 weeks before I, really planned it all out. But the first few weeks was really just spent with me and my team listening to leadership. I sat in on the initial key meetings, just listening to leadership. These were the key members of the organization who, within certain organizations, there's always a different structure. With this organization, this leadership team sort of set off to the side in a sense. And then the working team, I kind of gave them a nickname. The working team had its own sort of leadership structure, but there's this working team and then there's the central leadership team. So I sat with the leadership team and I just wanted to hear from everyone. I wanted to hear from them in their own words, what they expected of this. What do they imagine the outcome to be? Almost like a wish list for this deliverable that we're putting together. What would, success look like? What would you like to see? And I had them each describe it. I spent so much time listening to how they wanted, how they envisioned the solution to this problem, what we were addressing. I spent time with the working group, the working team, and listen to them describe what they wanted, what they needed. And then I just spent some time reflecting over what was said. Now, I didn't drag this out, but this was a time when I think we can easily get in, you've been in these meetings before, I'm sure, where you're listening to the problems and what's needed. You're getting excited because you can fix it. You can deliver, you can create what they're needing, whether it's a team meeting within your organization or with a partnered organization, whatever it is. You're sitting in this meeting, someone is describing the problem, what they need, and you are excited because you can fix it. Or maybe you have an answer and you want to interject that. You're excited to share what you know. And these are all well-intended kind of gestures and responses. When we get excited and want to share what we know, it's not a bad thing, but there's so much power if we can just pause long enough to allow people to be heard. I think from my experience in working with BIPOC leaders, I think it's even more important than any other situation or organizational group is just having that intentional pause to just allow them the time to be heard. Just listen. So after I listened, spent some time reflecting over what was said, and then I created an outline of what I was going to do to prepare and engage with this client team, the working group, as well as the leadership, because I wanted to keep them all a part of how we were going to work the solution out. I've realized that this is something that not everybody, we all have our strengths, right? There's certain things that we love to do and certain things that we don't really get excited about. There's some people who love the data and the epidemiology part of things, and there are people that really don't. They would prefer to do some other aspect of a project. So when it comes down to some of these projects, I am a problem solver. And for me, I even use this analogy with my clients often. I'll say, this is the part where you're dumping all the pieces of the puzzle onto the table. I want everyone to dump all the pieces onto the table and then just give me the opportunity to move the pieces around and start to have things fit into place. That's something that would make a lot of people extremely uncomfortable, but that's where I thrive. I really enjoy that. So I was then taking the time to kind of move the pieces of the puzzle around, created an outline of what I was going to prepare, what my team was going to put together, and as a response to what we have heard, we had heard up at that point, and how we were going to keep them engaged. And shortly after that, we created the first full draft of this deliverable, the report that we were putting, this customized report that we were putting together. And we circulated that around with the working group and then also to the leadership team. And we, asked for feedback. I wanted all feedback, comments. We had multiple meetings where this working group it was like a think tank. They just began to put everything out there and they went in all different directions, seemingly. Like I said, this is sort of my zone. So hearing from everyone, even though it may seem like we're all over the place, to me, it wasn't. I was hearing what I needed to hear. So we went through a few iterations of this draft, and then of this outline, and we finally created the draft. We circulated that around, incorporated their feedback into a few different iterations, and then the final draft emerged. And right on the schedule timeline that I had put, in fact, this project ran a little late, but it was not a fault of our team. It's just my client's internal group had a hiccup in the schedule, which caused a little bit of a delay. But outside of that, we were right on time. And I really understood the level of vulnerability from leadership regarding this project, because for leadership to trust me, this is a BIPOC organization, they're trusting me with their problem. And they're saying, this is the mess we're in, so to speak. We need your help to sort this out because we can't continue on like this. I did not take that lightly. So I really made sure I set an intention to make sure that I respected and honored that vulnerability and that trust. And we delivered on time according to that work plan. And the biggest reward was the trust in the relationship, because I remember sitting at the end of that project with that final deliverable, and everyone was excited. They gave me all of their feedback. We put something together that resembled it, but they also realized that this was still a little bit of a work in progress. They needed to take it and tweak a few more things to really personalize it all the way through, but only in a way that they could have done. I couldn't have done, but I gave them what they needed to take those next steps. And they were very excited. And a partnership and a relationship was further established because it was not, oh, this is the end. Thank you. Goodbye. We won't see you again. It was like, okay, this is great. We're going to work on this now. We're going to circle back to you soon with what we might need you to help us with next. And I love that. So this was about, like I said, the biggest reward for me and for my team was the build of trust and to just watch how that relationship shifted and the stance and positioning across the team, my team and clients' team, the leadership team, as well as their working group. So as I wrap up, the reason, I'm thinking, you may be listening, oh yeah, okay, that's cute. That's nice. But the reason I really wanted to bring these lessons learned to this conversation on this podcast is because we're all public health professionals. We are all working some aspect of these types of projects. You may be a part of that working group within an organization. You may be a part of the leadership team within that organization, and you're having to coordinate between your internal working group, team members, employees, and maybe outside consultants that have come in to help with a project. Or you may be in a position like mine where you're helping a different organization from your own, but you're having to merge and have this collaborative agreement and a working relationship between two different types of teams. But it's all for a very common good. Like you're really ultimately creating something that's helping that organization better serve the community. And in our case, it's BIPOC communities. And if you listen to this podcast, you know how passionate we are about serving BIPOC leaders and organizations. So this becomes a huge win for us at the end of the day. And it's not where the road ends. It's a relationship. It's trust build. So that means that they may work with us again in 6 months. It may be a year from now, but we've established trust in that working relationship, and it's mutually rewarding. Not only did they get something that they needed and they felt so relieved, and leadership was excited to have a solution to this problem that they had been wrestling with for a while, but I was equally excited to be a part of providing that and to be a part of that service to the community. So as I wrap up here, I'd like to just kind of share my key takeaways from this experience, because I think that everyone listening can relate to some part of this story. And there's something that you can take with you to your next project or place of employment and situation with teams. One thing is that it is important to listen more than you speak. And we hear this, we know this, but every time I have these intentional pauses to allow that time to listen. And because I did that early on, I was able to really hear from leadership, hear from the team, and really get to the root of what they needed, what they were struggling with, and what they were worried about. And that only comes from those intentional pauses, sometimes a little longer than you want to, but it's important to be able to listen. I don't think you ever go wrong by listening more than you speak. Another takeaway is, for me, I've mentioned this before, and it doesn't matter if you're a consultant or if you're a professional, whatever organization, we all have a passion or should have some level of passion for what we're doing. Maybe it's a connection to the community we serve, whether we directly touch them or indirectly touch them. Or maybe it's a passion for just advancing public health in some broader way. But being led by your passion to serve your client, your partner, your group, your colleagues is really important. That makes it so much more rewarding than just completing a project and moving on to the next thing. So the second takeaway for me from this experience was the importance of being led by your passion to serve. And for me, in this case, it was creating that huge win for the BIPOC leadership in that organization, and knowing that that's going to directly trickle into the communities. That was a huge win for me. And then finally, a key takeaway for me in this scenario, in the situation that I'm discussing with you, is remembering that the project is bigger than you are, and so is the impact. So this project that we completed over, 5 or so months that it took us to complete was so much bigger than the project. It was so much bigger than the working group team and even the leadership team. It was much bigger than my team. It was much bigger than the agreement that I had and the money exchange. It was huge because this project represented something that directly poured into the community. And each individual in that community then could be challenged or charged with a way of serving even more broadly beyond themselves. So regardless of how you show up for your projects, just always remember that they're bigger than you are. And the impact is also much bigger than you are. So show up, put your all into that. It's not just about how you feel or just enough to check the box, but give it your all or your best, because it is just bigger than you are. That impact, the project is so much bigger than you are. Those are reminders and takeaways for me from this experience. I hope that something here resonates with you, and maybe it has you show up a little differently tomorrow for that next project. I hope so. I enjoy the work that I get to do. And as public health professionals, we're in this. It's important that, especially in our really very difficult times within our industry, with so many shifts and changes to public health, the loss of workforce, the challenges we face in the industry, I think it's more important to be reminded of things like this, the greater impact, these opportunities to serve, and knowing that it does matter. So I really hope that this sticks with you. All right, everyone. Until next time, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thank you for listening to the Public Health Epidemiology Conversations podcast. Visit phecpodcast.com to find the show notes for each episode and to learn how to work with me.